Okay, so this is my review of the first 3 episodes of the highly hyped new Hulu show produced by Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington, who also star in it, called Little Fires Everywhere. This is also based off a book I have not read. Make sure with these videos in the comment section, no spoilers for the book, please, unless it's already happened in the show. We got to keep that separate so people don't get spoiled watching this for the first time without reading the book, like myself. So in episode 1, it's a great hooking intro. This is where it felt like Big Little Lies from the start, because you're starting with the mystery in the first scene that happens in the future from the current timeline of the show. And you see that the Richardson's house went up in flames. You don't know who caused it. They mention it might have been Izzy, most likely, but of course that's a misdirect. That can't be who it actually is. And you see this takes place in the 90s. Which I think is pretty cool. And where the main timeline takes place is August 1997. I love having the 90s nostalgia. Being a 90s kid is the happiest times for me. And we're kind of getting beaten to death with 80s nostalgia in TV shows right now. So it's a breath of fresh air to have 90s references. You gotta love just seeing a Spice Girls magazine, the big landline phones. We even had fax machine drama on episode 2. They reference all these 90s movies, 90s jokes, 90s music playing, and even we get some 90s remixes, which is great. And the outfits too, pretty spot on. Even though I did see on Reddit that problem a lot of people had was actually the haircut of Brian, Lexi's boyfriend, that there's no way in 97 he would have that haircut. I'm not sure about that, but I trust the zeitgeist here on that one. So if they're saying that, come on, costume department, you gotta get that right. But everything else seems pretty good. So we see Reese Witherspoon's playing a very Reese Witherspoon type character, but she is incredible, again, in her performance in this show, just as she was in Big Little Lies, just as she was in The Morning Show. She's killing the TV game right now. She's a treat to watch, and she's always really good at blending in humor, too. She's a great comedic actress as well, which I don't think stressed enough, because she's so good at being serious, but there's also these little comedic timing of her lines and how she says it's so believable. She doesn't miss a mark. And this is, to me, has been her most impressive performance to date. And there's already stuff with her character that makes you laugh right away, where she is so strict to certain rules, she's a prude, and that she only will have sex the exact 2 days a week. The humor that works so well with Elena is that seeing her try to catch on with how she's being ignorant is always really funny to watch. And they do a great job of that in this show. She's likable because she has good intentions. It's like she's not realizing what she's saying. And then we meet the other side of the coin here, which is actually Kerry Washington's character of Mia. Now, I actually haven't watched anything besides Django Unchained with Kerry Washington. I thought she was great in that. But I haven't seen Scandal. I don't really know what to think of her as an actress before this. And I've heard such mixed things. People who love her and people who aren't crazy about her. It's a very polarizing type actress, it seems like, from what I'm getting. So for my judgment so far in these first 3 episodes, I think she's fine. I don't think she's amazing. I think she has some really good scenes, though, and I don't think she's bad either. I think some people might get caught up on the facial expressions she makes, but I still think it works, and I think she is true to her part. And I think, which we'll get into in episode 2, the scene she had with Reese with the wine was excellent. But in a show with Reese Witherspoon and Kerry Washington, I didn't expect them to also have, really, that's stealing the show, is the cast of children in this show. This is the best cast of child actors I've seen since Stranger Things. Now, I've always said in the past, my favorite child actor performance is Noah Schnapp, who plays Will in Stranger Things Season 2. But what's kind of putting a test to that now is Lexi Underwood's performance of Pearl. She is giving the best performance in this show right now and blowing me away. Holy crap. This really stood out for me in the scene in episode 1 when Pearl's yelling at her mom saying, "I want more than one wall." This was really powerful, and this is a scene that only works, and you bring that kind of dialogue from a book out to perfection if the acting is perfection, and it was. I mean, it's a challenge even for Kerry Washington to keep up with her. She's so good. That's the crazy thing about acting. People who say, oh, you got to give child actors a break. No, there is a bar, because there's some that can do it even better than some of the best adult actors. And she's just already showing you that proof right there. And I think the most heartwarming relationship in this show, and that makes you just full of glee when you see them together, is Moody and Pearl. And that starts right when they meet each other in episode 1. He comes over. Moody is the most likable character in this show. Definitely the most innocent in intentions. They casted a great person to play this type of role. I just feel bad for the poor kid that his name is Moody. If you have named someone Moody in your life, there's always time to change that. help them out. And then we meet a very complicated character in Izzy, who is the little rebel of the Richardson family. She has a great scene here when she's in her recital and she puts "I'm not your puppet" on her forehead. It's a great type of character to have to combat with the type of character in Elena and Reese Witherspoon. And what I really loved about episode 1 was the great juxtaposition between the daughters and mothers towards the end of this episode. How Pearl gravitates to Elena and how Izzy gravitates towards Mia. It's what they desire in their moms that they're not getting. And I think everyone experiences that at some point when you're a child, when you meet other parents. You'll be attracted to the other parents that have something you've kind of missed in your own parents. I think it's just natural. And you get, again, good moments that come back around. You get your payoffs in just the first episode with Mia coming around and getting more paint for Pearl and getting her a bike. But what's interesting is you can't forget these little flashes they had that Mia has these nightmares of her on the subway, seeing which we could assume was her husband, and that it flashes between her husband and Elena on the subway. There's got to be similarities to this mysterious man that reminds her of Elena. And it's important because they show you this early, but the talk of the mysterious husband to Mia is really highlighted in episode 3. So that is going to get payoff for sure, because Pearl has no idea who this person is. And you get little seeds planted here, like at the end of episode 1. Mia has a picture here of Elena that she's taking without Elena knowing. So that's also interesting too. We don't know everything about Mia. Mia's the more mysterious character of the two. And Mia's got different plans of her own. She's always got these like backup plans that she doesn't tell anybody about. There's some shadiness to her. And you see how they light her character. And it really shows again, which we'll get to, that great scene in episode 2 when she's drinking wine with Elena, that with Mia, a lot of times they film her in the shadows or they'll film half of her face in shadows, where with Elena, it's super bright. Everything in her house is super bright, but even when she's on screen, her whole face is glowing. It's like showing you how transparent Elena is and how mysterious, and Mia has this other side she kind of hides from everybody. And then you see with Izzy now, she's got the headphones on, she's listening to hip hop, in contrast to this classical music she's playing with the violin that her mom wants her to kind of be into. But then when she opens that locker and sees a picture of Ellen, it's the cover of Ellen. Oh man, it's so tough for me to watch bullying in shows. I have like PTSD from it. That comes from, if you've ever seen the 90s film Harriet the Spy, where she gets painted in blue by the class. That scarred me for life with bullying scenes. I hate them. They're so hard to watch. Of course, they're necessary, but I was like, oh boy, here we go. And the show does a good job with the score in the sense of having this light piano play a lot. It's not overbearing. They don't overdo it. An example of this is in episode 2 when Mia's just walking around the Richardson house for the first time and kind of finding some of the skeletons there with Nicorette gum and Valium. But while she's kind of doing her research, you got Elena now going to extremes and getting a criminal background check of Mia. But this worked really well in episode 2 because it would be what brings them together in the end. And that was intense with the fax machine drama. I missed that. When's the last time you had a show with that kind of thing going on where it's sent to the house? That's what's pretty cool. When you're set in the 90s, you can kind of take advantage of going back to old TV conflicts that we can't do anymore. And you see that Mia finds in the fax machine what Elena did. And then that transitions to the vagina monologue scene. And that's a really good scene because it highlights a real idea of what this community is about, the pride they have, and they're living their own bubble and all that privilege going on. And they don't shove this privilege thing in your face either. They make it very realistic and down to earth about it, and having different types of these privileges. And you even see one of the women in this meeting is the more progressive one and trying to get them to face these harsh realities through a reading like Vagina Monologues. But really it was a standout scene for Kerry Washington, and this is where Mia says a great line here where she's like, how can we see ourselves if we are afraid to look at who we really are? And you see that affects Elena. Elena is open to that. She just needs like a hand to guide her. And I really, again, my favorite scene of the show so far was with Elena and Mia drinking this wine. This is some incredible acting by both of them, especially Reese here. And it gets real deep when Reese is talking about you should kind of be worrying that your daughter doesn't like you if you actually have to think about it, which is in her case with Izzy. And she's talking about motherhood where it's like, they don't just need you, you learn you need them, seeds and all. Title of the episode. If this is the Emmy tape for Reese here, it would be this scene for sure. But this is what I'm talking about with the humorous moments here with Reese. I love that they bring up that she's never seen her own vagina. And then she goes upstairs hammered and takes a mirror to the bathtub to her vagina. That was so funny to me. And that's where she gets comedic actress props. Like, it's so hard to pull off a scene like that so convincingly and so funny. And it's interesting with Mia's character building and that painting she has of the spider, but it's kind of a person, and that she's alluding to it as this monster and where that motivation comes from and how she feels as a person. It's interesting. And it's kind of opening a door there. It's like kind of a long game plot development. So episode 2 was my favorite episode of the 3, but where the tide tilted for me a bit, because I'm saying all this positive stuff, but where it got negative for me in my head was when we get now all of a sudden this focus really out of left field towards this character of BB. And the cliffhanger of episode 2 all of a sudden being that she's going to tell us how she lost her kid. What the hell? Like, that was so weird to me because, like, they invest so much time in two main characters in Mia and Elena, and not just them, but their families around them, the people around them, the community around them. And then they're like, well, wait a minute, we got thrown this third tier real quick. And all of a sudden, it's the main focus. It almost feels like it would have worked better if we met BB in episode 1 and it was kind of drizzled in from the start. My head was already getting sucked into now Mia and Elena's relationship that it kind of pulls it back for a second. I know that the BB part will eventually bring their conflict, but it was just felt weird, and it's not that interesting of a story. Maybe it's more interesting in the novel, but this is where my dislike of episode 3 comes about. Now, it's well done in the sense of, okay, it's called 70 Cents episode 3, right? And we see in the flashback how BB dropped her baby off at a fire station because she couldn't take care of her anymore. She didn't have the means. She did what she thought was best for her child, and the big thing is that she didn't have 70 cents to be able to get formula for her baby. And you'll see the juxtaposition there where later on when Izzy's on the bus, she doesn't have 70 cents, but she's allowed to still go on, just showing you that privilege thing going on. But again, as a whole, this story of BB is a little silly. Like, I'm going to address that first through this episode because it all of a sudden makes a complicated character in Mia very passionate about a coworker's child. Really quickly. And she's hearing all this information from BB that she's an illegal, so she couldn't go to the police to find her kid. And the way it comes about with Mia going upstairs to the baby at the party, confirming it's the child, and then when she goes back to BB, and BB's like, no, I'm going there now. Mia gives just a little effort, not much at all, to stop her from going, because it is a terrible idea. It's not the right thing to do either. Sure, it's her child. Of course, she's passionate and want to see her now, but you gotta, at that moment, calm her emotions down and be like, look, wait a second. Like she did for like a second, but that was it. And she let her go. And they angle it weird, the show, because you feel for BB, of course. And you get where she's coming from, but then it's like, I don't really like that she ran in the party and screamed and, has no sense of compassion towards the parents who took care of her kid after she was dropped off. I think there's a middle ground here. It was so like presented as like, oh my god, poor BB, but there's also a way to approach it as like, hold on, let's get the other side of the story too and just focus on getting your kid back, not in the point of like, you've stole my baby, that just didn't work for me. And either way, it's again just a weird story to me, just throw in the middle of all of this other story going on. And it didn't make me like, I thought episode 3, because they released the first 3 would be the hooking point at the end, but it's like, okay, now it's going to put a rift clearly between Mia and Elena now that Mia let her kind of go there, and Elena is probably going to be on team mom who adopted the baby, but I don't know. I don't think that's interesting. But what did work in episode 3, and I still think is actually more interesting than any of the adult storylines, is actually the drama with the kids. Now, with Lexi and Brian, her boyfriend, Lexi's written really well because it's a very believable tone-deaf type of character. She's the most tone-deaf of the Richardsons, period. You see this by her stealing Lexi's story for her essay for Yale, and you see how she justifies it by, oh, well, I'm not black, I could still do it because I'm a female like her. It's like she's using that as her excuse. And then she buys Lexi a dress just to get on her good graces to make it look better for her boyfriend Brian. Now the problem is Brian is written in that frustrating type of character that's just the character that's written by the writers that's like the Mary Sue of a guy, if that makes sense, or he's perfect in the sense of his morals and his awarenesses of someone who would be way older. And that's just shown right away when he gets to the Richardson house and he's making the joke about, oh, they must think we're into basketball and rap too. And then he's so passionate about defending Pearl to his girlfriend as the most heroic man in the building, I guess. But it's a little bit unbelievable. They do make it more human in the sense that he still obviously is dating Lexi because he has lust for her and they eventually bang. But it's like, I don't know. I think it's a little annoying when they make someone so adult of a character when they're all still teenagers. But it's just that kind of plot convenience for the writer to get their message in. Like he's a walking Twitter person, if that makes sense. Now, this was actually even funnier to me than Elena's scene where she's looking at her vagina through the mirror. Was actually the comedic writing where she's at the dinner table and they're talking about how the kids call Izzy Ellen. And the way Reese says, because she's funny? And Moody's like, no, I lost it. That was so great. I think another more interesting story, again, they highlight in this episode is with Pearl wanting to know who her dad is and how much Mia hides that from her, where she's eventually just gonna have to face the music and give this information to Pearl. And I love the whole homecoming dance of the 90s. You got Tub Thumping playing, Love Fool, 90s hits here, and seeing them all dance to it was awesome. And it's just this adorable dancing with Moody and Pearl, and Moody's doing the robot. But what's interesting about the relationship with Moody and Pearl, what's really highlighted in this episode is you got Trip, the older brother here, who's clearly got the hots for Pearl. And Pearl also has got the eye for him too. And Pearl is in the category of, she is totally assimilating to this family. She does turn a blind eye to things Brian highlights about the Richardsons because she just wants to fit in with them. But it also makes you wonder, how much is she using Moody here to do that? Because she jumps at the idea of going and hanging out with Lexi and Trip, even though, like her mom said, you know, Lexi buying her that dress is like, you're not her property. But there is that, again, blind eye that Pearl puts on just to become one of them. And that's her even wearing that dress. So we'll see how that pans out with them. And you wonder if Moody's going to get hurt by Pearl. And there's another good Moody scene here with Izzy, because he does a very touching moment where he says to Izzy, you don't give a crap about anyone thinks about you, and I love that about you. Someone the voice of reason to Izzy here, because this whole episode, it's this story of Elena kind of giving not the greatest of advice to Izzy to change her story when deep down she knows, wait, this can't be my daughter. But she kind of still always wants to make like replicas of herself. And there is little subtle things the show does well, where when Izzy first comes out in the dress, Mia's the one to first notice the cut in her leg. I'm still not sure that was a cut from a razor like she says, but that's a red flag to Mia, and she notices that, where the dad and Elena just notice the dress right away, what they want to see. And Joshua Jackson here is great as the dad. He's perfect for this type of role. His character is getting a little more build up too, just him knowing more about Izzy than Elena does, and he seems like a fine guy, you know, he's just kind of there, but he does it well. And I think we'll get more complication with him soon. And that's where it gets interesting too with Izzy's storyline, where April's mom says that Izzy sexually accosted April. So that's what caused this conflict, and that the dad didn't really deny it. So you see now at the end, we got this Phil Collins rendition of In the Air Tonight, but it's like the slow acoustic version. That's always an overdone thing in shows now. Wasn't crazy about that one either. I don't think it really worked. But as a whole, for these first 3 episodes, I expected these little fires everywhere to be a little more juicy, like the Big Little Eyes we see in Big Little Eyes. I thought we'd have like that bigger, like, oh snap thing at the end of episode 3, and to be this thing where it's kind of a distant BB thing that just kind of got shoved in now with the baby. It was just like, all right. So episode 3 was definitely my least favorite, because I just feel like that story of BB bogged it down a bit to what we got kind of set up for with Elena and Mia, and it kind of pulled it away for a sec. So I hope it doesn't hamper too much on this baby. So episode 3, I would give a 7. Overall, for the 3 episodes, there's a lot to like here, but it's not the most exciting show. I hope it just gets a little more interesting and it picks up the pace a bit, and that it doesn't get too This Is Us in the sense of just heartwarming story, and that it goes more into the deep. This is rated TVMA. It's on Hulu. Go for it here, you know? But again, I haven't read the book. I'm not sure what really happens, but do not spoil that down below. That's for somewhere else. Let me know what you thought of it down below. I think it's pretty good. It's not great, but there's a good ceiling for it. It can get better. I read every comment, try to respond as many as I can. Please subscribe so you don't miss one of my reviews of Little Fires everywhere. I'm also reviewing Better Call Saul at the moment and Devs. And I also do celebrity interviews, so you want to check those out as well. And please follow me at SteveVarley1 on Twitter and Instagram for more of me. And I'll see you next time.